Welcome to this D2L Fusion On Demand session, and greetings from all of us at the College of Southern Maryland, also known as CSM. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Kim Donnelly, and my colleagues, Sarah Hand, Rose Miller, and I are thrilled to be sharing an overview of our faculty-driven and classroom-based early screening program that we've been working on at CSM since 2017. Before we dig in, we want to give a special shout out to our colleagues, Rachel Bateman and Stephanie Veers, who also contributed to today's presentation. We hope that you find something out of our session that you can use as you're implementing new D2L tools following this conference. To kick off our session, let's look at the big picture. Prior to 2017, about 50% of new students were returning to CSM for a second year. So we asked ourselves, what can faculty do in the classroom to increase that number? And so we went through various processes and we decided to develop strategies to do a better job of onboarding students into our courses. We worked with faculty and a few staff volunteers to create an assignment called My Plan for Academic Success, and also 2 reflection assignments. The whole package became known as Hawk Go. In 2021, our Achieving the Dream initiatives, along with our new Gateway Courses Community of Practice, decided to implement those materials across various instructors and various courses. And we'll give you the details of those shortly. The Community of Practice is made up of course coordinators from 7 disciplines. And we decided to build our Hawk Go in Brightspace. Well, that brought us to the summer of 2021, and the coordinators did a whole bunch of training. Over 200 faculty were trained to use the Hawk Go materials in 15 courses spanning many disciplines, and we'll talk about what those are in a bit. As of 2023, we have had an average boost in retention ranging from 3.5% to 6.5% when compared to non-gateway courses, that is, those that don't use the Hawk Go materials. And we continue to fine-tune the materials based on student, faculty, and staff feedback. When we first started this process, there were a couple of pieces of research that showed that programs like Hawk Go could be meaningful. And they gave us some ideas for our starting place. And the first one I want to share is from QCO Thompson and McLaughlin. They summarized some of this research in their book, Thriving in the Community College and Beyond. They wrote, studies repeatedly show that college success is heavily influenced by the quality and quantity of student-faculty interaction outside the classroom. Such contact is positively associated with the following positive outcomes: improved academic performance, increased critical thinking skills, greater satisfaction with the college experience, increased likelihood of completing a college degree, and a stronger desire to seek education beyond college. Furthermore, that same book quotes a 2010 study published in the Journal of College Student Development, which said, quote, initial interactions with faculty members are also very influential in increasing the value placed on high academic achievement and in compensating for the general student culture that does not typically value such achievement. As I'm sure you know, traditionally in higher ed, we tend to aggregate final grades, and we look at success as defined by retention, transfer, and graduation rates. but those are lagging indicators. We can try to fix things for the next term based on those results, but we can't do much for the students who are in the class at the time when all we have are lagging indicators. It's much more challenging to systematize formative assessments and early screening. And we realized that we really needed consistent leading indicators, which would allow faculty and staff partners to intervene early in a course, which would provide those high quality outside the classroom and initial interactions that were recommended in the research that I just shared with you. So to respond to this need for leading indicators, we created the HawkGo components to encourage faculty to give small grades and feedback early on when students can make adjustments to get on track for success during the term. And this sets up a systematic, intentional process for early interventions and interactions between students and faculty, made possible at scale through Brightspace tools and focusing on strategies for academic success. We had 4 key goals for the HawkGo module in Brightspace. We wanted to ensure that every student has the opportunity to demonstrate engagement and momentum during preview week, which is our 7-day period leading up to the start of courses when our Brightspace shelves are open, even though the courses haven't started. So we wanted to look in the preview week, but also continue that into the first couple of days of class. We wanted to screen for potential misperceptions early in the game. And if we found any of those, we wanted to clarify anything that was confusing for students. And it wasn't just about identifying students at risk of struggle. We were also trying to affirm students who are on track and let them know early that they were on track and they had strategies that would help them succeed. So you're probably wondering what Brightspace components we use. So required in all sections of our 15 courses, we require the Brightspace student orientation, where they upload a certificate of completion in an assignment tool. We require the My Plan for Academic Success, which we built in the quizzes test tool. The HawkGo First Reflection and Final Reflection, both of those also live in the tests and quizzes tool. And then optionally, we have an academic integrity quiz that some of us use. We have a CSM success checklist, and we have a success strategies inventory survey using the survey tool in Brightspace, and a companion discussion that goes with that using the discussion tool. And then we thought you would probably be interested to know about which disciplines participate in HawkGo. So kind of a quick roundup. In communication, we have 3 courses. We have first year seminar, and you'll be hearing from Rose in a few minutes, who is the coordinator of first year seminar. Integrated reading writing, which is our developmental course, and I am the course coordinator for that course. We have math participating with 6 courses, and a particular emphasis on developmental math. Sarah Hand, who's with us today, is the coordinator for that area. And we also have the non-STEM freshman math courses that participate, as well as freshman psychology, science, and sociology. And it's really important to note that HawkGo is the only shared content across these 15 courses. And the beautiful thing is that it is shareable across all of these different content areas. And we've worked together as coordinators to make sure that it fits well with every course that has adopted it. Now to zero down a little bit to dive a little bit into the details, My Plan for Academic Success is the centerpiece of HawkGo. We chose the quiz tool for that because we can view statistics within the section of a course. looking at student responses, and we can also review responses by question. So we can see one question and all the students' answers in one place. You may be wondering how to do that if you're not familiar with the test and quizzes statistics. In Brightspace, you go to the test and quizzes item on the tool ribbon, you choose statistics and then question details, and you're able to see the statistics for the quiz as well as question by question answers and details. And then we also use the quiz test and quizzes tool because when you fill out the completion summary as you're grading them, that sends text-based feedback to the grade screen, which allows students to very quickly start gaining momentum because they can see information going to that grade screen. And a byproduct of this is that students learn to use the test quizzes tool so that they're prepared to use that in future classes. We require the My Plan for Success within preview week and the first couple of days of a course. We prefer it to be completed in preview week so that we can triage students even before the class begins. And the Plan for Success has 4 sections. We address students' goals, students' expectations, their plan for overcoming challenges, their technology, books, and materials. And we also require them to do a final reflection that requires them to look back at their plan for success and link some ideas together and revisit their goals at the end. So at this point, you probably want to know a little bit more about what this plan actually looks like, how it works, and how we see it being beneficial to our work and our students' work. So I'm going to hand it off now to my colleagues, Sarah and Rose, and they're going to take you on a deeper dive into the plan for success. Sarah and Rose, feel free to go ahead and unmute now, and I'll advance you to the next slide.
Thank you, Kim. This is Rose. I will be introducing the first 4 goals of the HALT Go. The first goal was to check for understanding of the syllabus. The second goal was to practice using Brightspace quiz and tools. The third goal was to reinforce the student's goal for the term. And then the fourth goal was to clarify the student's expectations for the term. Sarah?
The other 3 goals here, starting with number 5, was to identify potential barriers to success. 6, to make plans for handling difficulties as they arise. And then number 7, to identify specific people who can help. We're now going to show you examples of how HALT Go has been used to achieve these goals using real student examples from our courses. We'll have examples of all of these goals except for number 2, since that is inherent in the fact that we have this My Plan assignment in the quiz tool. So students automatically are getting that practice before they need to use it for a content assignment. Next slide. Okay, so here we're looking at goal number 1, to check for understanding of the syllabus. Okay, so this is a question from our My Plan for Academic Success assignment. We asked the students, according to the syllabus for this course, what do you need to do to earn a grade of C or better for credit courses or pass for developmental courses? Okay, so we're asking here specifically about the grading policy, and this student responded, in order to get a C or better, you need to do good on the homework and quizzes. So this was a response that was concerning to me because this was a developmental course and the grading scheme is pass-fail. So students don't get letter grades. So this is telling me that the student hasn't read the syllabus and well, at least they haven't read the grading policy part of it, and maybe they haven't looked at the syllabus at all. And this is concerning because this could indicate that the student has a lack of engagement in the course at this point in time. So I'm going to talk a little about the interventions that I would typically do for a student who shows a lack of understanding of the syllabus or the course grading policy in particular here. Okay, so I would respond to the student in that overall quiz feedback that we talked about that goes directly to the grade screen in Brightspace, and I would also follow up with an email to the student. I would explain that the grading policy in this course is pass-fail, and I would also point out that there are additional grading categories. I would affirm that it is important to do well on the homework and quizzes in the course, but also mention that there are other grading categories that come in to calculate in their grades, such as exams. Okay, and then I would, like I said, I would typically email the student as well. And if I don't get a response from the student, I would also follow up with a flag. So I would also keep a close eye out on the student for other issues as we go along in the course and flag them as needed. So I'm mentioning flags. This is the way that we communicate with our learning support services when we feel a student needs additional reach out or resources. So this student actually had a couple of other issues that came up. The first was that the student didn't show up for the first day of class. When this happens, we always flag the student. In other words, let our learning support services people know that this student, didn't come to class and ask them to reach out, which they always do. So this resulted in the student communicating with our LSS coordinators who were able to help them understand how to access the course and how to get onto the Zoom link. This was a high flex class in which the student was able to log into the course either over Zoom or to come in person. So they indicated they were having trouble with the technology, and LSS was able to work with them, and they did attend the second class. This student also had an issue with registering for the course materials. So that was another time that I reached out to LSS, and they worked with the student to help them to get registered for those course materials. So this student unfortunately was not successful in the course ultimately, but I feel like the fact that they didn't give up and they didn't withdraw from the course is a positive thing. They did take the midterm and even signed up to do a retake of that to try to improve their grade, but ended up not following through. So even when a student is not successful, my hope was that the connection and support that they got from faculty and from our learning support coordinators makes them feel that they are cared for and helps them to develop strategies that can help them in future classes. And perhaps this is part of the increased retention that we're seeing with the use of HawkGo. Next slide. This next slide is addressing the goal for clarifying expectations. This student was asked what strategies they would use in order to be successful in the course and to say why those strategies would be helpful to them in this particular course. So this student said, if I have any questions, I'll talk to the people around me or attend tutoring. I'll set aside specific times for studying and put in as much effort as I can. And they said that this will help them by pushing them to do their best and also using the resources around them when they need them. Okay, so I feel that this student had realistic expectations and identified specific strategies for success. And they also identified how this was going to help them with the course. So this student seemed to be on track. So typically I would respond to this student in the quiz feedback tool, and I would reinforce that the student has good strategies, encourage them to set those study times and to use all of the resources. I would direct them to information in the Brightspace course shell regarding my office hours and tutoring information. And then I see here at the end of the semester that this student in the final reflection assignment was able to look back at these strategies and evaluate how they worked for them. Okay, so this student said in the reflection that they felt like they pushed themselves as much as they could. However, they were feeling burnt out at the end of the semester. So their solution to that was, in the future, they were going to look to take courses in a longer format. This was a 7-week format course. We also offer this course in a 15-week format. So it was good that the student learned something from this reflection, that a 15-week course might be a better fit for them. So even a student that seems to be on track can still look back and reflect on how things went and what they could do differently. And I feel like without the planning and reflection, the student might not have identified the issue and might have continued to struggle in shorter term classes. Next slide.
So this is an academic success plan question that deals with reinforcing the goals. We asked the student, think about your college goals, and then what are your overall goals for the attending CSM? And then how will you work in this course to help you achieve those particular goals? The student initially replied, I want to transfer to a four-year university so I can get my bachelor's. And he also wanted a second goal. This course will enable me to prepare for college and beyond by helping me work on my academic skills and my time management skills. Additionally, this course will help point me in the direction of a plethora of resources that will help make my time here much easier. And his final reflection, things didn't quite go the way he wanted, but he hung with me. He stated, I wanted at least a C in this course, and God willing, by tonight, I hope to achieve that. I do not think I used many useful strategies. I really procrastinated almost every assignment and stuff, and I asked for extensions and did not even turn the stuff in when I received them. I feel not too good about this. I think I had some good momentum in the beginning, though. I had a regular schedule and I was able to consistently turn things in on time, and I'm proud that at least I did that. So when I initially read this on the academic plan, my intervention mainly was time management with him. So time management was a huge issue with the student, and he initially identified that as a potential problem. And as it turned out, it nearly cost him to fail the class. This particular student has mental health issues and was very open about discussing them with me when I asked for a conference with him after he was late submitting his very first assignment. I checked first to see if he had a therapist or a counselor, and he said he did. And I checked with him on regular check-ins. He came to class early to meet me at least a dozen times in the 15-week session. I helped him to organize what assignments to work on, how to scaffold those assignments. I continuously reminded him about his progress towards his goal to keep him focused. He wants to be a marine biologist. If I saw anything in the news about marine biology, I always made a point to mention it to him, which I was in hopes it would generate a lot of energy, which it did with him, because then he was dynamic and talking to me about everything under the sun about marine biology. I encouraged him to get a study buddy, but he didn't do this because he's not very sociable. So that part of our plan fell apart completely. But at least he would come in and see me, and we tried to get him through the course with better than a C, but we wound up with a C. and he understands that his major issue is procrastination. Next slide, please. Another question from the academic success plan dealt with potential barriers, and this particular one is balancing work and school. We asked, what is one potential challenge you might face in this course? And if you encounter the challenge you described in the previous question, what are 3 strategies that you would use to overcome the challenge? The initial response on his first reflection, getting my work and school schedule tangled together as a possible challenge. To overcome the previous stated challenge, I could change my availability to work different days that line up better with my due dates, find a different study time, or cut back my work hours if necessary. His final reflection was, I was able to do everything that I wanted to do in this course. I managed my time well by writing out all of my due dates and allowing myself a couple of day buffer in case I got behind. Using a calendar did not work for me because there were assignments all over it for different classes. Instead, I used a sticky note for each class for the assignments, and he had it set up so it was every 2 weeks he'd put new sticky notes on. So my initial intervention with him when I read that, and we sit down and did some brainstorming, was to recommend combining all of his classes' due dates in one calendar by using different colored highlighters for each class. He had 4 classes total that he was taking between a 15-week and 7 weeks. There was a mixture of those. This did not work for the student, so we brainstormed a little more, and he returned with a sticky note plan, which we chuckled about because that was interesting. All the sticky notes he had pictures of all over the place, but it worked for him. Another way to help students balance their work, school, and family responsibilities is to leave all modules open so students can see what is coming due and plan around their school, family, and work schedules. And then I also post weekly announcements with reminders about the assignments' due dates. Next, please. Sarah.
So another potential barrier that we screen for in the My Plan for Academic Success is technology issues. So here we asked the student, what devices can you access at home? Check all that apply. A desktop or laptop computer that is not a Chromebook, a tablet 10 inches or larger. My desktop, laptop, or tablet is an Apple product. A Chromebook, a smartphone, or I don't have access to any of the above devices at home. So this student responded that they only have access to a tablet and a smartphone. So this is concerning to me because some of the publisher software is not fully compatible with a tablet or a smartphone. So the interventions that I used with the student were to respond to them in the quiz feedback and by email. I explained that the reason for my concern was that the publisher software might not be fully compatible with the devices that they have access to. And I connected them with a resource to borrow a free laptop computer. This is something that the College of Southern Maryland has been providing to students since the pandemic, and we've continued it even after the pandemic. And then I would also monitor this student, especially in the first week, to see that they have registered for the course materials and they have started completing their assignments. Okay, so and this student did end up borrowing a laptop computer from the college, and this started a conversation with them where I also helped them to borrow a calculator. This is another program that we have to allow students to borrow a calculator for free for the semester. So this student borrowed both. And this was a first-generation college student, and English was not her first language. So she needed some support getting started, especially with technology, registering for the course materials, sort of kind of figuring out how this course was going to work in the beginning. So it was great that I was able to make that connection with her. And she was very successful in the course. And as a matter of fact, I saw her a few semesters later, and she was taking statistics and was really showing a lot of signs of confidence. So that was great to see. I also want to mention that these resources for students, sort of a spin-off to Hot Go that Kim and I have put into our developmental math and English courses, are these helping hands announcements. So we designed these together and put them into our master shells in Brightspace. So, and they have weekly dates where they go out to the students, so weekly release dates in the master course. So every section of our courses have these helping hands announcements. These are reminders about things such as tutoring, counseling services, registration for the next term, the loaner laptops, and for math, the loaner calculators as well. Next slide. So another potential barrier to success that we screen for that came up with a student was managing school with family responsibilities. So we asked the students in the My Plan, how do you plan to schedule enough time to do the work for this course? For example, what days and times will you set aside for studying and homework? And how do you plan to control distractions so that you can focus during your study time? Okay, so this student recognized that she had a potential challenge of caring for her children while going to school. Okay, and she said, I usually set time at home after class to work and study. I plan to control distractions so I can focus on study time, is to do as much work and studying as I can when my children are in school or in bed. Okay, so my communication with this student revolved around affirming that it was good that she recognized this potential barrier and that she had a plan to deal with it. And so I would, commend her for planning and thinking this through, and that she has some good strategies for study time and how to focus. I also would reinforce with this student about the resources that are available to her, such as tutoring and office hours, and how tutoring can make your study time more efficient. And that tutoring is also available 24/7. So if she is studying, late in the evening when her kids are in bed, she still has access to that resource. So the student reflected upon this at the end of the semester. In the final reflection, she said that she managed her time by doing schoolwork when her children were in school or at nighttime when her children were in bed, as she had planned. And that what worked for her was having peace and quiet so she could concentrate. And she also discovered that what didn't work was trying to do her schoolwork when her kids, quote, could constantly bother me as well as my husband. We laughed a little bit about that one. So this student also was very successful in the course. As a matter of fact, I had the pleasure of working with this student in 3 developmental courses in a sequence. She did very well, and she communicated very well with me. And I think, again, that initial reach out really helps to establish that connection between student and faculty so that the student feels has easier time maybe coming to you during the semester if there's any issue that comes up. And this student actually planned to do a certificate program at first and ended up after a few semesters deciding to go on for associate's degree as well. So I think she was able to, in that reflection, confirm the commitment to these strategies and that they really did work for her and that she wants to, stick with them and in future classes. Next slide, please. So we also, another one of our goals was to plan, help students to plan for handling difficulties as they arise in the course. This student was identifying some struggles with the course content itself. So we asked the students in the My Plan assignment, what is one potential challenge you might face in this course? And if you encounter the challenge you described, what are strategies that you would use to overcome that challenge? So this student said that one potential challenge I might face in the course is not understanding the material being taught. I struggle with word problems. 3 strategies to overcome my challenges is to ask the teacher for help, get tutoring, and refer to class notes from class and in Hawks. Hawks is the publisher software and textbook that we use for this developmental math course. And so I'm always a little bit concerned when a student expresses doubt in their abilities to learn and understand the material, but at the same time, it's good that they're identifying that challenge and actually being very specific about knowing that word problems is something that they struggle with. Okay, so I reached out to the student to affirm that many students feel that the course material in this class may be challenging for them. So she's not alone, and word problems are often a challenging part of the course, and many students need help to understand them. Okay, so I wanted the student to know that she's not alone in this and that there's help available for her and that it's really good that she's identifying this challenge and these strategies up front. Okay, so I would encourage the student to ask questions, come to my office hours, come to tutoring, refer the student to more information in the Brightspace shell about my office hours and how to ask and how to access the tutoring. I often would also suggest study groups with classmates and reinforce the other resources that are available online in the Brightspace shell that she mentioned, like the class notes and the resources in the publisher software. And also emphasize to the student the importance of reaching out for help whenever she needs it. So in the reflection at the end of the semester, this student said that she did motivate herself to do the best work that she could. She said that the semester, the math was more challenging, but she said she didn't give up when she was stuck or frustrated. She said, I found the solutions by asking for help and taking notes as Hawk showed me how to do the problems when I could not figure it out. The errors I made in this course is to not ask Professor Hand questions when I was stumped. Instead, I made myself frustrated. I will ask the professor questions next time. Okay, so this student was able to reflect that she used a lot of the online resources to figure things out, that this was helpful. But she was also able to realize that she needed to ask more questions and ask the professor for help when she needed it. Okay, so instead of trying to do it all on her own. So I think this should be helpful for the student as she continues to move on to even more challenging courses, that she understands the importance of asking questions and reaching out to the professor when she needs help. Okay, so again, I feel that this reach out, this connection with students that's made at the beginning of the semester through the HawkGo assignments Whether to affirm good strategies or intervene for issues always serves to open that communication and help students feel supported. Next slide, please.
The last example we have, and this question comes from the academic success plan, and this one deals with communication and the people who can really help the student. And this is who the student recognizes as people that can help them. We asked, think about your experience at CSM so far. Try to name at least one person at CSM who is part of your success network. Think about the people who support you, provide advice or advising, and answer your questions. List the names of people in your CSM Success Network and how might you build your success network with this semester. So the student said initially, Latasha Baker helped me a lot when I was in dual enrollment through CSM in high school. This young man was straight out of high school and had done the dual enrollment for a couple of years before coming into college. I will do my best to make connections with classmates and professors so that I have plenty of resources to reach out to. I would try to reach out instead of being my normal shy self. In the end, what he said was there are a couple of guys and one girl in my business class who have really helped me in both that class and my other classes. And again, I continue to build connections and reach out even if they don't reach out to me. So initially, when he was in my class, the FYS class, he was very quiet, sat in the corner by himself usually. So in FYS, I do a lot of group work in the class to help students like him to really start bonding and networking with their classmates. On the first day of class, we do our introduction icebreaker activity, which helps some, but I also put the students in working groups to help students start bonding and forming informal support groups. When I find a shy or introverted student like this young man was, I place them in student groups that are open and friendly to their classmates and me. Representatives from the Learning Support Service, the library, the academic and financial advisors, the counselors, and student life government will come and speak to my students early in the course. I remind the students of these support services as we get to each one of the different chapters that cover the content. All of these services have open door policies for the students and remind them of that when they come in and speak with them. The Learning Support Service office includes tutoring, Thinking Storm, which Thinking Storm is an online writing tutor for the students. They also have computer and printing access, and the important thing for a lot of students is a quiet place to study and to do their meetings with their groups. So one of the problems with this particular question that we have, lots of times the student will not always see the professor, the instructor, as a support person in their network. Again, he didn't mention it, but he come and spoke with me several times during the semester. So communication and letting the students know where they can go for support is huge. Next slide, please. This chart displays student retention rates for the gateway courses. The 15 gateway courses are on the right of the screen. There has been a significant increase in the retention of students in the gateway courses over the non-gateway courses. There is a 3.6% retention increase in fall 2021 to spring 2022, and there is a 3.5% retention increase in the fall 2022 to spring 2023. And then our largest increase to date has been a 6.7 retention increase from fall of 2023 to spring of 2024. The sample size range from 2,127 to 2,426 students in the gateway courses, and in the non-gateway courses, the sample size was 2,772 to 3,216 students. The only common denominator for all the gateway courses is the Hawk Go program. Just as a side note on this, fall of 2021 saw a very large group of returning students from the COVID pandemic. Next slide, please. This chart shows data on an early alert system. Sarah mentioned it a few slides back, but I'm going to talk about it just a little bit more here. Faculty will attempt to contact students who are having issues with attendance or submitting assignments, or maybe performing poorly academically wise. If students do not respond to the faculty's attempt to contact them, the faculty will raise a flag and briefly describe the student issue to the Learning Supports Department. And we usually call the Learning Support Department LSS. The LSS personnel will contact the student by phone or email. Depending on the student's response to the problem, LSS may recommend the appropriate support service to help the student be successful. LSS personnel close the loop by emailing the instructors the final communication results with the student, which will also close the flag. For example, LSS may email the instructor to let them know students will be contacting them, or that the student has been given tutoring schedules. In the fall of 2019, 471 flags were raised for student issues. In the fall of 2023, 666 flags were raised for student issues. Now, there's a huge jump there, and one of the reasons being is that there was a huge college initiative was made to contact students early in the semester if there was an issue with a student not being successful. Well, we also have kudos. Faculty will also raise kudo flags for students who have done well on assignments to help keep them motivated. In the fall of 2019, only 37 kudo flags were raised. In the fall of 2023, 310 kudo flags were raised. Again, that was due to the college initiative included praising students who were doing well and contacting students who needed more guidance. LSS works hand in hand with students and faculty to support students in meeting their goals. LSS is a huge partner to students and to the faculty. We rely on them very heavily. Next slide, and Kim.
So this slide is showing the top 6 problems that our LSS coordinators identified in flags that faculty set for students. So when our LSS coordinators receive a flag, they reach out to the student by multiple means, by phone call, by text, by email to both their school email and their personal email, and also may use referrals, like for example, referrals to tutoring services. Whereas when instructors do reach out, it's typically through the email through Brightspace or directly to a student's college email. So we don't have, as instructors, as many ways to be able to reach a student. Okay, so the LSS coordinators went through and identified these top 6 issues that were in student flags, and how they help students with these. So number 1 was that a student didn't know that the semester had started. And the call results in the student logging into the course and attending class. Or the student registered and forgot about the course and actually has no intention of attending this class, and the student is able to withdraw by the refund deadline. Okay, so odds of solving this critical issue are far higher during the refund period for the course. Okay, so this is often the result of a non-attendance flag being raised by faculty when a student does not come to the first class. So in our Hot Go training, we've emphasized the importance of raising this flag right after the first missed class to allow for reach out and resolution of this within the full refund period. And for our 7-week courses, this is only 2 days after the initial course meeting. The second issue that was identified was that the student does not know how to log into Brightspace, navigate the course, log into email. So LSS is able to work with a student to get them started on how to log in, how to get into their course, how to find the critical information that they need to get started. Okay, the third issue that was identified was that the student is unfamiliar with the Brightspace environment. They are not aware of assignment due dates, aware how to find them. And again, the LSS coordinators will work with the student to help them find the strategic information in their Brightspace course shell so that they're able to do that initial navigation and get to their assignments. The fourth issue that was identified was that the student is unfamiliar with additional courseware. So the student may not know how to log into publisher software. So the LSS helps the student to be able to register and log into their course materials. And then the fifth problem identified was a need for tutoring. So the LSS folks can provide the student on information on how to connect with the tutors, and also with strategies for success in using tutoring. I think most of us who use HopGo have information in our course about the tutoring and how to access it, but this is just an additional intervention to help students and get to that resource. We also have a flag specifically for referral to the Math Resource Center that we can set for a student, and then the Math Resource Center staff will reach out to that student, give them more information, and invite them to come in and use that resource. And then the last of these top 6 problems that was identified was self-management issues. So these are issues such as course load, how to handle school and working, and a lot of this centers around strategies for time management, and advising and helping students to manage those issues. So like was mentioned by Rose, we have our partnership with the learning support services is critical to helping students be successful. And I think HopGo has helped us to develop that relationship even further. Next slide, please. Part of the training that we did for HopGo was helping to teach faculty how to write effective flags. As we mentioned before, over 200 faculty members, both full-time and adjunct, have been trained in HopGo, and this included extensive training on writing effective flags. Our flags are seen by the student. So when we set a flag for a student, they will see it. So we need to make faculty aware to be careful about the language they use. We want to make sure that we're encouraging and that we're giving the students specific feedback on how they can improve their success in the course. And we wanted to make sure that language being used was non-judgmental. We encourage something called the Oreo cookie method, where we want to start out with something positive in the flag, then state our concern, and then inform the student about next steps to get back on track, and then to end again with something sweet with that Oreo cookie, that we're sending a supportive message, and that we are here to help them. So here's some examples of flags. A flag that was set that was done before training in a math course, Math 1010, just says student has missed 2.5 out of the last 3 classes. Student had the same issue last semester. Okay, so this is a student reading this might not feel very positive about it. And here's a flag that was set after training in a different math class. Student has attended class, so they start with something positive, but has not completed the introductory work. So they're stating the concern. And then they're giving specifics that the student should have completed the My Plan for Success and the orientation certificate. Okay, and they say that the reminders were sent in class as well as through My Learning, which is our name for Brightspace. Here's another example of a flag set before the training in a communication class. Student has not attended. So there's not a lot of information there. We don't know how many classes the student has missed, what reach out has already been done. So these flags not only are seen by the student, but obviously by the LSS coordinators, and they've helped us to understand as faculty that the more information and specifics we can give them about the situation, the better their reach out can be. So here's an example of a flag that was set after the training. Again, in this communication class, I emailed Kara regarding missing assignments as well as the late policy and how to raise her grade. She indicated she would complete missing assignments and has completed some of them, but not all. Okay, so here we have more specifics about the reach out that has already been done with the faculty, and that there are missing assignments, and that the student has been made aware of how that she can raise her grade in the class. Okay, so I think that the training with the flags has been very helpful all around for faculty and the LSS coordinators, and of course for our communication with the students. Next slide, please.
So having heard all of this about our Hot Go program, you're probably thinking that we have done a lot of work, and it sounds like a lot of work. We have done a lot. We have scaled up the program, but we are still iterating and we are still fine-tuning. And first of all, through the process of creating this presentation for D2L Fusion, we've learned a lot about additional Brightspace tools and processes that might help us manage the workload better and collect data more efficiently. And you're seeing these listed there. We're hoping to learn more about how to leverage Performance Plus and the Insights tools to extract adoption and engagement data for program participants in the Hot Go areas, assignments. We're hoping to explore how to build a custom report to compile quiz results across the multiple sections of the multiple courses to see aggregate trend data. We're also hoping to look at ways to maybe leverage the survey tool better to collect participant personal information, thinking more along the lines of an intake form for some of the basic stuff, like do you have the technology, do you have the books, do you have time, and leaving the My Plan quiz tool for some of the more in-depth answers, the context-related answers that we want to get from students. And finally, we're going to look a little more closely at how to utilize intelligent agents to trigger automated emails for various purposes, responding to maybe the My Learning Brightspace student orientation, just affirming that people completed or reminding them that they need to complete it. So we think there are some options to control the workload a little better than we have been by using some of these Brightspace functions. And the second part of what we've learned is that some parts of Hot Go are really powerful. We've seen that students can experience success and see success on their Brightspace grade screen in the first week, so that they get that momentum and traction within the course. We've seen that students use CSM student services sooner. You saw the statistics on the flags that are raised. We use Starfish for that, and it is embedded within our Brightspace product. So it's a one-stop shop for students and faculty and learning support. And we've also seen, as you heard from the examples today, that students connect with their faculty members early and often. And lastly, we want to leave you with some tips to consider if you're thinking of doing something like what we have done. And that probably the most important tip we have for you is to make sure that you create a flag or a tracking process that isolates the problems that have been identified and the solutions that flow from that intervention for course-based early screening. Looking back, we would probably, in our Starfish that's embedded in Brightspace, we would have a separate flag just for this issue is being raised as part of the HawkGo initiative, so that it wouldn't be mixed in with all the flags, but we'd be able to know exactly how many flags were raised as a result of the HawkGo assignments. And we would probably create some sort of a spreadsheet or a form that would track the closing of the loop. What did happen? Did the student get a laptop? Did the student get help? Did the student go to tutoring? To try to track that better than we did. We also hope to explore some ways to do screening before courses begin. We've realized that some of the questions that we're asking in the course would be much better asked before courses start. So we're looking at the possibility of some sort of intake form or other process that would shift a little of that off the faculty to pre-course work, because we really do need to explore more ways to make the faculty workload manageable. As you heard from Sarah and Rose, there's a lot invested in responding to the plan effectively, responding to the reflection assignments. So we need to figure out some ways to make things a little more manageable for faculty. Here we just share with you 6 really important resources. This is our bibliography recommended resources page. You'll have access to these slides in your conference app, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time sharing those, but we do hope that you'll reach out to us. On this final slide, we have our email addresses for the 5 of us who contributed. We also have a link on the right side to the entire Ready, Set, Go program. HawkGo is the final part, and Hawk Ready and Hawk Set are parts of our orientation. We hope that you have some useful takeaways, and we thank you so much for joining us at D2L Fusion and for watching our session. We wish you a wonderful conference experience, and we hope that you can use some of the ideas that we shared with you today. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.